Hi, I'm Damien, and this is the Ford Ranger Raptor that won last year's Baja 1000. Now, this actual vehicle has been shipped back to Australia, where it's going to take on the Finke Desert Race. Now, if you're watching this after the Finke Desert Race, Ford Australia hopes it will be the winner in the production four-wheel drive class. But what makes this different and similar to the Ford Ranger Raptor in your driveway? We're here at Walkinshaw Performance in Melbourne to find out exactly that. Now, joining me now at Walkinshaw Performance is Justin Capicchiano, Ford Performance Program Manager. Justin, why on earth did you guys ship this car from Baja back to Australia?
It's a really important car for us. Given that it's a winning car at Baja, we wanted to bring it back and to take it to the place where we tested it and developed it, which was the Alice Springs Desert Race, right? So we've been testing the car all around there, and we really wanted to show what it can do on our home soil.
So it's won Baja. Now, it's a production car, it's a production class vehicle. What's different for Finke, and how close to a stock Ranger Raptor is it?
It's very close. It uses the same engine, it uses the same power, it uses the same engine management system, same suspension, same driveline, everything that you would notice in the car, even down to the way that the climate control works, is all exactly the same as your production vehicle.
So it's minimal changes. How difficult has that been for you guys? Obviously, with Ford's heavily involved in racing, things you can change and things you can't. How difficult has that been?
You want to look at the rule set and see what you can do, but from our perspective, we wanted to have a different philosophy of looking at it from a production vehicle and keeping to that ethos and saying, this is what a production car is for us. This is our production vehicle, and we think that's good enough to win.
Now, Baja is a slower, longer event than Finke. It is longer, right?
It is much longer, yeah.
But so it's going to be doing faster speeds at Finke. So then what little changes have you guys made to make it more adaptable for that speed?
We looked at what was already in the Baja truck, and we've already tested it and shaken the car down in the Johnson Valley, and also looked at our testing and data results on the standard truck. We're pretty confident that we can maintain that higher average speed over that shorter period of time. But fundamentally, the truck as you see it here is very, very similar to what it was like in Baja.
So if you aren't familiar with the Ford Ranger Raptor, this is a 3-litre V6 turbo petrol engine. Now, Justin, there aren't any mods allowed in this category for what you guys are doing with this, both in Baja and in Finke, are there?
There are mods that you can do to the truck in relation to cooling and performance, but we've chosen to pretty much keep the car as standard. So it runs a standard powertrain control module, it uses the standard cooling packs. It is fundamentally the same car that you can buy in the showroom, down to the power level and everything.
And same with all the Baja modes that you get, the switchable part-time four-wheel drive. Tell us, how does that work in competition, and does it still work?
Yeah, so everything from that side, the car was tuned to work in those race environments. That's how we do our sign-off for the road car. So we knew that we had a really strong base. We've kept that for the race truck, and that's how the car will be driven at Finke, probably even with the air conditioner on.
So these aren't the stock wheels,
no.
But they're not that far off. Tell us just a little bit. It also looks a little bit higher too, Justin. Tell us a little bit about the changes here.
So obviously the vehicle as it sits is a little bit different in relation to weight. We've got more weight underneath the vehicle in relation to underbody shielding, the nudge bar at the front, the fuel tank in the back. All of that means that the car's got a slightly different balance. So the reason the car sits a little bit higher, some of that's in the wheel size, which is 35 in lieu of the 33s on the standard truck. And the car itself is sitting a little bit higher to manage what is in the back, an empty fuel tank, but a much bigger fuel tank, so we've got to counteract that weight.
Okay, let's look inside the front cabin before we check out that larger fuel tank.
Yep.
And one of the cool things inside, Justin, I see the stock road car has the rally stripe on the steering wheel, but there's a few other bits and pieces here. There's more screens and obviously a full cage. Tell us the extent of the what we've had to do inside to get it Finke ready.
So if we're going across the vehicle, you've got a navigation screen, which what Byam will use to determine his route.
It's a co-driver.
Notes, yep. We've also got a Motec C167 display on the side of the car. That's going to give the co-driver the instructions that he needs from any kind of alerts that need to come up on the screen, any kind of awareness about what's going on in the CAN system, everything down to even the TPMS in the tyres, which we've kept, and that will flash up on for the co-driver. He's obviously got a job to make sure that what Brad's going to be doing from a driver's perspective, his job is to drive. Byam's going to be keeping his eye on all those systems. As we go across, the car will be in the off-road screen, so the standard off-road screen that is in the production vehicle, used by the same buttons that are in the same production car, running in the same modes that the production car can go in. So it'll be running in Baja mode with traction control off, and obviously using the standard cluster for all the speed and rev display.
Now, for those unfamiliar with Baja mode and also the settings on the Raptor, now you've also mentioned it still runs ABS and it still runs a stability control system, but can you explain that Baja mode for people who maybe don't know what it does in the standard road car?
Yeah, so in history, as long as motorsport's been around, people want to turn ABS off. This car has got a mode called Deep Slip that when you're in Baja mode and you've got all your stability control systems off, it will enable an additional level of slip within the ABS. That gives you more control and steering ability under braking without engaging like a locking position on the brakes, right? So we've found that it's actually beneficial for the drivers. It's a little bit different for them to get their heads around, which is why we've gone with the experienced driver and co-driver pairing. But it works in this application.
And that driver you mentioned, Brad Lovell, and you've talked about his experience will come in handy at the higher speeds for the Finke race. That's obviously Brad's a bit of a legend, a bit of a Hall of Famer in terms of off-roading.
Yeah, Brad is a legend, right? He's one of the biggest names in American off-road racing. He's won Ultra 4 championships, King of the Hammers. He's won Baja. There isn't anything that he hasn't been able to drive, and he took us to the title in Baja. He's the right kind of person to be able to drive this. And the reason for that is the amount of speed that you can carry in this vehicle is going to be more than what the terrain will enable us to drive over. So it takes a conditioned driver to be able to tone it down and be able to manage the vehicle across the distance, because in effect that's the challenge in production car. It's not driving flat out, it's driving to the condition of the track.
Yep, fantastic. And you mentioned it's still got air conditioning and has cruise control still.
Yeah.
And you guys actually took it through an In-N-Out burger in a drive-through in the States.
Yeah.
That's how stock this thing is.
Yeah, which the electric windows still go up and down. So we did have to order it on the wrong side of the car, but that was all part of the experience.
We're on the right side now in Australia, but we've got Perspex rear windows as well. What's in the back behind the driver's seats?
Yeah, behind the seats, it's business, right? So it's about tools, it's about recovery, and it's about first aid. So in the back you've got fire suppression systems, you've got air supply for the driver and the co-driver, so a filtration system, so it pumps into their helmets. You've got a couple of spare parts, but fundamentally it's all empty and it's basically just pure safety.
So at the back of the Raptor, it's all business here. And Justin, this doesn't quite look stock. And I noticed there's a tailgate, which it didn't have for Baja. Is that right?
Yeah, one of the requirements for Motorsport Australia is that you have to run the event with the tailgate. In North America, you don't. They don't want tailgates because they're a hazard if they come off the car for other competitors. But in Australia, it is required, so we're going to be running the tailgate.
So the irony is you can have a tailgate party in Australia, but not the States. That seems right. But tell us about these wheels, and can we open this up?
Yeah, sure. So obviously can't fit a pallet in the back anymore. It's all taken up with objects. So from the front to the back, we've got a 160 litre ATL fuel cell. We'll be running Shell V-Power for the event. In the back we've got the two 35-inch KO2 spares, Pro Eagle jack with a custom slider so that we can jack the car up on soft sand. And we've also got a couple of spare parts. So on my side over here we've got a spare tail shaft. On that side we've got recovery boards and basically some odd fluids in front of that.
And the stuff, the Shell V-Power going in the 160 litre tank, is that a biofuel or is it pump fuel?
It's pump fuel for this one. Availability in Australia means that we've got to stick with pump fuel.
Interesting, but you guys ran biofuel at Baja.
We did. We ran an E30 blend. Biofuel in Baja, and it was awesome.
Not quite supercars fuel.
Not quite.
So Justin, the other thing about this car, obviously you guys talk about Ranger being developed in Australia as a road car, but there's Aussie fingerprints all over this car, literally and figuratively. Tell us about, we've got Rob Herod here, Herod Performance. We know that Kelly Racing worked on the original setup of this car. Tell us a little bit more about those guys.
I mean, it's been awesome. We've been able to leverage some of our relationships within our supercars team. So obviously we're here today at Walkinshaw Performance. Also been working with Todd Kelly, who built this car in its initial state before we sent it over to Baja. And Rob's been a tremendous partner of us since you know, as long as I can remember. Rob's come on board and wanted to help us out with the program because he believed in what we were trying to do. And like a lot of the companies that have done this, they've really sort of wanted to get behind the Australian story of it, the development side of it, and the fact that it was done here. So coming back into our backyard, it's really important to our partners that we can show what it's done here as well as in the States.
And there's Easter eggs all over this car. Would you have thought you would have put an XF Falcon on the side of a race car in 2023?
It was something that we wanted to honour. Having known Dick for years now, he's done everything, right? Like, he's been everywhere in Australian motorsport. He's done everything. He means a lot to the Ford brand, and to put a little Easter egg on the side of it to commemorate the 30 years that it's been since Dick went to Fink is really important for us.
Well, thanks, Justin, for showing us around this Baja beast, and hopefully it doesn't stay this clean heading to Fink. But it shows you that a near-production dual-cab ute these days actually has quite a capability, and also things are hotting up in the desert when it comes to off-road racing in Australia and around the world.